Tonight I'm going to talk about a problem, and it seems to affect many of our race over the last few decades. It affects all races, but it seems like it's really hitting us hard right now. And unfortunately, this is a problem that I know fairly well. And that problem is drug addiction. Now, my story's not special in any way or anything, and I'd thought about making this video before, but I guess I'll finally do it. Now, I've always had an addictive personality, the way I see it. Unfortunately, I'm a man of extremes sometimes. When I was a kid, I had an addictive personality. But when I was a kid, I was addicted to healthy things, playing in the woods, playing in the creek, looking for reptiles and amphibians, chess and baseball, I had those as hobbies and I loved it. Couldn't get enough of it. And as I got older, when I graduated high school, I went off to college, and that was my first mistake because I had never tried any drug of any kind up until I was about 19 years old, 20 years old. So that's about 13, 14 years ago. And I went to college, and I didn't have any of these activities. I didn't have baseball, I didn't have anything, really to put all my restless energy into, I guess you could say. So, I ended up trying drugs and stuff, and I kept it under control for several years, I led a double life there for many years. I hid it from my family up until I couldn't hide it any longer. I was also a very secretive child, honestly. I don't know why I was. I just didn't like people to know what I was up to. I was pretty shy, and this kind of helped in trying to lead a double life. And there's no sense in trying to lead a double life because it's going to catch up with you sooner or later. And it caught up with me. Now, I wasn't going to tell you what substances I was hooked on, but I guess I will anyway because I'm just telling you to kind of show you that I know what I'm talking about. Let's see. When I was 20, that is the first time that, I smoked some pot and I drank some, but when I was 20 years old, that's the first time I ever tried an opiate or a painkiller. It was just hydrocodone or Lortab or whatever. And I wasn't hooked. It wasn't one of those things like I was hooked from the get-go. It was just a recreational thing there for several years, and then it progressed to Oxycontin, Roxy's, oxycodone, and I got pretty hung up on those when I was around 23, 24, 25 years old, and that's a pretty costly habit, to tell you the truth. It's ridiculous. And to get off of those, I began using Suboxone or Subutex. It's a narcotic blocker, but it also gets you high. And basically that's one of the most ridiculous things, to tell you the truth, is to get off one drug, you get on another drug. It's absolutely pointless. And to tell you the truth, these in a way were more addictive than anything because they were a lot more cost effective. I could get them cheaper, and I could make them last longer. And for about a year and a half, 2 years, I was on these pretty hard. Actually, it was about 3 years probably. And there at the end, the last few months I did them, I finally realized, I was like, wow, these are doing nothing for me. I don't get high from them. And I'm doing so much now that I have to have it to feel normal. And I finally made the decision. I was like, I'm getting off of this, you know. I'm snorting 2 to 3 pills a day when I started out doing this, a quarter of a day would last. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I made the decision to quit. And about 3 days after, because I guess I had so much built up in my system, that's when I started to get the dope sickness. And that's just another term for opiate withdrawal. From the 3rd day up until about, I guess, 3 weeks later, I was pretty sick, to tell you the truth. Opiates are they're physically addicting, to tell you the truth, because your body gets used to it, and when you come off of it, you feel like you have the flu. I know I was throwing up, diarrhea. It was horrible. Just cold all the time, just sick. I came off of it during the winter, and I know I laid around a lot there for about 2 weeks. It took about 3 to 3.5 weeks for me to start feeling normal again. But I managed to quit the habit, and I was happy for it, you know. And I was clean for about 6 months or so, and then I discovered meth. And that was, it's horrible, to tell you the truth. It's a disaster. I wasted about 2.5 years of my life on this. It is by far the most destructive, I believe. Put it into perspective, I guess, when I started doing it, after about 3 months, I had lost a lot of weight. To give you an idea, I'm 5'9", and right now my weight is hovers between 160 and 170 pounds. After about 3 months of doing that shit here and there, I weighed myself, and I was shocked to see that I only weighed 122 pounds. That shit makes you not want to eat, you don't sleep, it makes you crazy, to be honest. It can make you violent, and I'm not a violent person. I don't see myself that way. It makes you aggressive. It's a disaster, you know, there's no other way to put it. But once my weight dropped down to that, kind of started getting used to it, and I was able to make myself eat. I forced myself to eat, and I got my weight back to about 130, 135, which is still ridiculously skinny for me. I looked really bad during these times. The meth was more psychologically addicting than anything. I know if I went like a week or so and didn't do any, you know, started to feel pretty good, but, you know, I'd end up doing it as soon as I got the opportunity to. And then the last year that I was on it, it was practically every day. And it was a disaster. I was in and out of jail fairly often. I was a criminal, you know. I robbed people. I robbed drug dealers. I robbed people that I thought deserved it, but I also robbed people that didn't deserve it, you know. I was a criminal, you know. It was pretty sad, you know. But during this whole time, I mean, I did the wrong thing oftentimes. That's one thing, you know, when you're on drugs and stuff, you aren't the most trustworthy of a person. But one thing I will say is that I never did lie to myself, you know, when I was doing these things. I knew I was poisoning myself. I could tell. There was other people that I associated with and stuff. They, didn't really think like that. They thought it was good for them or whatever. And I'm like, you're crazy. We're poisoning ourselves. There's no other way to describe it. And when I did the wrong thing, I'm not making any excuses saying that I was on drugs. Before I did these wrong things, I knew they was wrong. Still did them though. And that's another thing I'd like to add is in life, when you wrong somebody, you can't make it right. You can go back and maybe compensate, maybe you can repay them, maybe you can do all that, but you can't go back in time and make it right. Now, my advice though, I don't know if this video will help anyone. I'm sure I don't think many of y'all ever, y'all got better sense than I do, than I used to have about this sort of thing. See, for me, I see it as this. A lot of people get into drugs and such. Some of them are just born into it. Their parents do it. They just grew up around it and they just follow the same path. I feel pity for these kind of people. For me though, there was no excuse. My parents never did anything like this, and I had great parents. I had a great family. Now I have cousins and stuff that also were into the same thing I was. And addiction, if you go further back in my family, it's there, But my immediate family, my parents, they've never done anything like that, and we were raised not to be that way, But I was always just curious, stupid and curious. And my advice, see, even when I was younger, junior high and high school, I always had this feeling that some time in my life that I might have some problem like this. Because even back then I knew I had, an addictive personality. If I liked something, I loved it. And when I finished high school and there was that big void in my life, I filled it with things that, aren't healthy. So I had no excuse to get into the sort of thing that I did, I was just curious about it, tried it, and over time, you get hooked. A lot of people do. So my advice is to anyone that's young, you may think, and see the media and all of this, they romanticize drug abuse with movies and shows and just all this bullshit. They romanticize it, and it's far from glorious. I've seen, God, there's a lot of stories that I could tell, and I'm not going to tell them here, of things that I've seen, things that, it's tragic, to tell you the truth. But my advice is, if you're young and you are curious about these things, my advice is to put that out of your head. Because the way I look at it, it's kind of like the tale of Pandora's box. And if you know the tale, you know that Pandora eventually opens the box and finds out that she can't close it and lets out all these horrible things. To me, that's how I viewed my problems, looking back on it. And just know that you aren't missing out on anything. A lot of people, they open Pandora's box and they can't shut it. I couldn't shut it. I had to get away. I was working very hard on heading to prison, and I'm sure if I hadn't stopped it's been over 2 years ago now. If I hadn't stopped, that's where I would be today, or could have been dead. I know shortly before I left, a few months before, I had a cousin. He was only 24 years old. He died. and he was into the same sort of thing I was. It's horrible. He was a good kid, you know. And you see this happen, so my story's nothing special. But my advice is, if you are young and you're curious about such things, just spare yourself. You know, you're not missing anything, to tell you the truth. A lot of people, once they go through that door, they never come back. Once they go down that path, they never show back up. And if you are addicted to such things, you know, you can always stop. A lot of the times, the only limitations I think a lot of times the only limitations we have are the limitations that we place on ourselves. And you can always stop if you want to. You gotta want to, though. But everybody's different. And yeah, it's very tragic, to tell you the truth. I'm very lucky that I got away from it all. I had a chance to get away from it, and I took it, you know. And I've heard back, and see, it's even in rural areas, you know. You think of drugs, you think of large cities and stuff, but here in the United States, especially here in Appalachia, it's remarkable how much drugs and stuff there is in rural places in the middle of nowhere. It's crazy, and I'm going to make a video about that later on, but I don't know if this video will help anybody. I doubt it will, because hopefully y'all have better sense than I did when I was younger. And another thing is, I never went to rehab or any of these programs, you know. I don't have faith in those sort of things. They're expensive, and I think they work in the short term because they get someone clean for whatever amount of time that they are in rehab. But once they get out, they're just back in the same situation, and they relapse, you know. It's just how it is. And I could imagine if I was still back where I was, then I would probably still be doing the same things. I was resigned to that fate there for a while, to tell you the truth, and that's horrible. But they always say, I've always heard it said that once a person's an addict, they're always an addict, and maybe this is true, but for me, I don't think it's true, for me at least, because I'll just tell you the truth, I really just don't want for that sort of thing anymore. I really just don't. I don't miss the chaos, you know, and I mean, that's really what that's what it brings into your life, is just chaos, you know. It's crazy. And I think you even get addicted to the chaos in a way, to tell you the truth. But I don't want for that sort of thing anymore. You know, I found other hobbies. I found something constructive to do with my time, you know, something better. And I know I caused my family a whole lot of heartache and worry during these times. I know before I left, there was about a year went by and I didn't even see my mother, and she lived 30 minutes away from me. I wanted to see her, but I looked bad, and I didn't want to worry her, even though I knew she was worried already, but I just didn't want her to see me like that. My dad, he lived just a quarter mile up the road from me, and they would be months past between the times that we would see each other, because I would avoid him because I didn't want him to see me like I was. And that's so stupid on my part. I won't never get that time back, but just spare yourself, you know. I know some people watching this may laugh and do like I did when I was younger, and some older person would tell me, you know, you might not want to do that. I'd just be like, I'd nod and shake my head, but in my mind I'm thinking, shut up, old man, I'll do what I want. But trust me, these older people telling you these sort of things, they know what they're talking about. But anyways, I'm sorry for the long video, but this is just something that I hope might help somebody. I don't know if it will, but yeah, Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.